of the glittering North Sea. The afternoon sun flashed across the fighters' silver wings, setting off the black-painted crosses that struck terror into the stoutest hearts across Europe. Inside the cockpit, the pilot breathed a sigh of relief. For the last 400 miles he had flown a tiring, highly restricted route, changing altitude several times to remain within the Luftwaffe's prescribed corridors of safety. Hitler's personal pilot had given him the coded map he carried, and with it a warning. Not for amusement were the safety zones changed daily, Hans Bahr had whispered. With British Spitfires regularly penetrating Hermann Göring's impenetrable wall of air defense, the danger was real, precautions necessary. The pilot smiled grimly. Enemy fighters were the least of his worries this afternoon. If he failed to execute the next step of his mission perfectly, it would be a squadron of Messerschmitts, not Spitfires, that shot him into the sea. At any moment, the Luftwaffe flight controllers expected him to turn back for Germany, as he had, a dozen times before, test-flying the fighter lent to him personally by Willy Messerschmitt, then returning home to his wife and child, his privileged life. But this time, he would not turn back. Checking his airspeed against his watch, he estimated the point at which he would fade from the Luftwaffe radar screens based on the Dutch island of Terschelling. He'd reached the Dutch coast at 3:28 p.m. It was now 3:40. At 220 miles per hour, he should have put 44 miles of the North Sea behind him already. German radar was no match for its British counterpart, he knew, but he would wait another 3 minutes just to make sure. Nothing could be left to chance tonight. Nothing. The pilot shivered inside his fur-lined leather flying suit. So much depended upon his mission. The fates of England and Germany, very possibly the whole world. It was enough to make any man shiver. And Russia, that vast, barbaric land infected by the cancer of communism, his fatherland's ancient enemy, if he succeeded tonight, Russia would kneel beneath the swastika at last. The pilot nudged the stick, dipping the Messerschmitt's left wing, and looked down through the thick glass canopy. Almost time. He looked at his watch, counting. 5, 4, 3, 2. Now! Like a steel falcon, he swooped toward the sea, hurtling downward at over 400 miles per hour. At the last instant, he jerked the stick back and leveled out, skimming the wave tops as he stormed north toward Aalborg, the main Luftwaffe fighter base in Denmark. His desperate race had begun. Fighting through the heavy air at sea level, the Messerschmitt drank fuel like water, but the pilot's main concern now was secrecy. And finding the landing signal, he reminded himself. 24 training flights had familiarized him with the aircraft, but the detour to Denmark had been unexpected. He had never flown this far north without visual references. He was not afraid, but he would feel much better once he sighted the fjords of Denmark to starboard. It had been a long time since the pilot had killed. The battles of the Great War seemed so vague now. He had certainly fired hundreds of rounds in anger, but one was never really sure about the killing. Not until the charges came, anyway. The terrible, bloody, heroically insane assaults of flesh against steel. He had almost been killed, he remembered that clearly enough, by a bullet in the left lung, one of 3 wounds he had taken while fighting in the famous List regiment. But he had survived. That was the important thing. The dead in the enemy trenches? Who knew? Really. He would kill tonight. He would have no choice. Checking the 2 compasses strapped to his left thigh, he took a careful bearing, then quickly returned his eyes to the horizon indicator. This close to the surface of the sea, the water played tricks on the mind. Hundreds of expert pilots had plowed into the waves simply by letting their concentration falter for a few moments. Only 6 minutes to Aalborg, he thought nervously. Why risk it? He climbed to 1,000 feet, then leveled out and craned his neck to survey the sea below. Waveless, it receded before him with the gentle curve of the earth. Except there, dead ahead, he could see broken coastline. Denmark. He had done it.